at some point after December of 2008, whether it was March 5th or 2009, but sometime after you sometime after you separated from Skyhorse, you offered to send Ms. McNamara, send Skyhorse.
I don't believe that's true. I never offered to send them Mary McNamara's criminal vetting, ever.
Well, didn't you offer to send it to the insurance companies?
No, I did not.
So when this email is...
I can tell you that I never offered to give Mary's vetting to anybody.
Did you write an email that said, I can send the original criminal and defamation libel vetting that was done by...
What it says is, I'm waiting for a call back to see whether I can or not.
Okay. Did there come... But at that point, did you, in fact, you knew that there was a vetting from Mary McNamara, correct?
Yes.
You had a copy of it, right?
I may have had it on the computer. I don't know that I had a hard copy, but at one point I did, yes.
Okay.
She'd sent me a file, and we had a discussion.
So where is it now?
I don't know.
I mean, if you had
I'm
it...
sure Mary probably has it.
Forget about whether Mary has it. There was a document request made of you, and I want to know how it is that sometime after December of 2008, when we had already made a document request, you had a copy, whether electronically or on paper, of Ms. McNamara's memo, or whatever it was that she wrote, and you did not provide it either to us or to your attorney so that he could then assert a privilege with respect to it.
The only thing...
Unless you're saying that you overlooked it.
That's always possible. But I think the first issue is when it was created, dated, provided to him. In other words, I think you're presupposing that at the time he sends this email...
He just said he had it.
No, he said he had it at a certain point.
But he said he had it at the time he wrote this email. He just tested it. Well, he just...
Well, I may not have physically had it. It's had it could mean... Let me explain something to you.
Well, let me do it my way.
Okay.
You had access to it, right?
You don't want me to tell you, so
You had access to it, correct?
I don't know that my attorney would have given it to me if I requested it.
But you just said she gave you a file.
At one point, she sent me a file, and we discussed it, yes.
And...
But who knows if I deleted it or don't have it.
All right. But you didn't say, I have to find out if I can... You didn't write to Mr. Weinstein where you said, I had to find out whether my attorney, Mary McNamara, will give it to me, right?
Maybe I misspoke.
So, what you wrote was whether or not you were asking whether Mr. Wagstaff would allow you to send it.
But to send it, I might have to try to get it.
So Mr. Wagstaff didn't have a copy of it?
I think he may have.
All right,
at some
so
point.
You could have asked Mr. Wagstaff for it.
No, because Mary was the one, based on the criminal part of it, that would have determined whether or not that could be released. I think that would have been her decision and not his.
Is it your testimony, so we're clear, that as of that since the commencement of litigation against you in the spring of 2008, you have not had a copy of Ms. McNamara's memo?
I don't recall what time frame I had it.
But so you don't know if you had it at any time since the commencement of the lawsuit?
No, I did not.
No. So, but you knew it existed, certainly.
I knew that I had at some point talked with her about it and knew that it existed, yes.
In connection with the document request, did you make, that we sent to you, did you call Ms. McNamara and say, I would like to see your file?
You see, the communication would have been between the previous law firm and Mary, because they communicated. I'm not sure what, you know, this started, as you know, in California, and then you changed it and brought it over here, and so I'm not sure of exactly what the time frame is.
Well, you also wrote, Mary's extensive vetting document must be interpreted in light of the fact that the protective order has now been vacated and many of her comments regarding the potential for criminal prosecution is no longer valid. If it was an extensive memo, which you now believe part of, some of which was now withdrawn. If it was an extensive memo, and you were now communicating to Mr. Weinstein that some of that memo was no longer applicable, you certainly had a copy of it to be able to make that statement.
No, I just became aware that the government vacated the protective order.
But what did you recall was in the memo?
There were all sorts of things in the memo involving, and I don't know if I should even talk about some of the stuff that's in there, frankly. It's
a good point. Objection is attorney-client privilege. It presumably, from this document, and while I'll talk to his other attorneys, it was a document which focused on the distribution or the dissemination of information as it related to the grand jury and that protective order.
Present it. I mean, and we can dispute it. I mean, I think the fact this waives the privilege. But then you said, once I hear back from Jim Wagstaff about the possible circulation of the original vetting of the book, I will get back to you. Would it be fair to say that as of the time you wrote this email, it was your belief that that if Jim Wagstaff told you that it was okay to send it, you would be able to get a copy of it?
Probably not. I think that decision would have been made by Mary. So regardless of what I said in the email, anything to do with the criminal part, which I still, in my most recent discussion with Mary, Barry Bonds could still go to trial. They could still possibly call me as a witness, and I believe that some of the information that's in that vetting is protected.
Now, are you saying then that you would agree that reading this email, you were communicating to Mr. Weinstein that you were relying upon Mr. Wagstaff to decide, to inform you whether or not you could send the memo out?
I named Mr. Wagstaff, but I knew that ultimately he would have to discuss this with Mary.
Okay, so you said it was Mr. Wagstaff, but what you really meant was Mary will have to decide.
Yes.
So this was just inaccurate.
Yes.
Okay. I don't think so.
Did you? Oh, you did.
I'm just putting them here as I get them.
I just didn't know that you had marked that.
What color was the clear?
Was the what?
What color would be the, what color was the clear?
A yellowish color.